My guest, Dr. David Henderson, joining me, a board-certified psychiatrist. David, thanks a lot for joining us this morning. Wanted to talk to you a little bit about something that I think a lot of us do, maybe not even knowing that we do it, but binge watch television shows. I know that back in the day, back when I was a kid, we didn't binge watch a singular show. It was the TV was on and you watched it you watched it for a while. You got up and you did stuff during a commercial break and whatever. Nowadays, you can either Hulu or TiVo or Netflix a show and watch anywhere from 1 to 52 episodes in a day. It's crazy.
Sure, yeah. It's something that has become kind of an epidemic, and I think there's a reason for it. Look, we as human beings have a tendency to take things that are good for us and try to make them as readily accessible as possible. So, for example, think about food. You used to have to spend an hour at least cooking a meal before you'd actually partake in it. Now I can run down to a Krispy Kreme donut, get a box of a dozen donuts, and fill myself with this rich, sugary substitute for food, and it's superficial. It doesn't satisfy. It doesn't last. The same thing is true with social media. We need connectedness and relationship with other people, and so what have we done? We've created social media so we feel connected with a greater amount of people, and it's easier to do, but it's a superficial experience. And the same is true with entertainment. We need to be entertained, and we need diversions in life to bring pleasure and joy, and yet we've made those diversions so readily accessible to us that they can consume us and overtake us.
I think about when I first got my TiVo, and I used to record the Simpsons episodes and watch those, and then fast forward through the commercials. And now that I have TiVo, I if I don't watch them for a couple of weeks, that's fine. They're all going to be there, and I can do like you said. We live in a microwave society where we want things, we want it done now, and now sometimes can't even be quick enough, really, if you think about it. For example, if you want to watch that show now you don't even want to sit through the commercials. You want to zip through the commercials, or you don't even want to have to watch the beginning of a show now. The credits at the end of the show, you can just skip to the next show.
Well,
our lives are consumed by all this stuff.
Sure, and we don't even need to now click a button to go to the next episode. Netflix has it set up such that within 3 seconds of the ending of the previous show, the next show starts. So we can literally sit back in our couch, in our easy chair, and do nothing that requires any effort at all and be entertained. And that is dangerous because fundamentally we as human beings, as a society, we're made to work. We are made to have purpose, to have drive, to accomplish things, and I am firmly convinced that with our physical bodies, if we don't work our physical bodies, they waste away. And the same is true with our mind. If we don't exercise our mind, if we don't work it, if we don't stimulate it, it wastes away. And that's what is happening, I think, in our culture and our society, is that we are not putting effort into a pursuit, into a passion. We are sitting back passively and allowing ourselves to be entertained. It's almost, Matrix-esque, that we're just living in a test tube and that our brains are being, manipulated for us. But I encourage my clients, you have to have periods, just like you would with food, when you ask yourself, am I full? Is this enough? Have I gotten enough entertainment for today? Can I put limits on myself and have a balanced life? And that's what we need more than anything else in our society, because we live a life of imbalance. Because everything's so accessible, we can consume it voraciously, and we go from one binge to the next. I don't care whether that's television or whether it's work or whether it's relationships. We need to be balanced as a society, and certainly media is not necessarily helping with that today.
Now, Dave, like when I get off the air, I talk for 3 hours every morning, and then I do a show in the midday on our classic rock station. So by the time I'm done working, I don't want to have to think. I don't want to have to talk. I just want to put myself in my own little bubble and leave me the hell alone. So for me, a lot of times I'll go home, I'll turn on the TV, and it'll be on until my kids get home from school, and I'm just vegging, and like you said, kind of that mind-numbing, get me out of here, get me out of here attitude that I've got. Are we using television as just a way to sometimes just to get away, to not have to think about stuff?
Absolutely, it is a diversion, and it is a way to escape. The problem is, and the danger is, when you, for example, if you've had a hard day at work, or you've been doing radio all day long, and you just want to kind of check out, my encouragement to you would be to mix that with some experiences of actually doing nothing. Sitting quietly and not engaging in any activity, because what I tell my clients all the time is you have to be brutally honest with yourself. A lot of my clients will sit down at their desk, and they'll sit at the desk for 2 or 3 hours believing that they're working, but all the while checking their Facebook account, their Instagram account, in between writing a few sentences or documenting a few things. Their brain is thinking that it's working when in reality half of that time is spent with a diversion. And so the idea is if you're going to sit down and you're going to watch a show, sit down and watch with intention. Don't let it control you, and set a limit to that time that you're going to spend doing that. And couple that with things that we really rarely practice today in society, and that is solitude, contemplation, and really acting with intention. And so that's kind of what I end up encouraging my clients to do, and I found that they have much more time for relaxation than they realize if they're intentional about it.
I thought you were going to say self-control, because I think that self-control is one of the things that that a lot of us don't have anymore, with media being right there in our faces for all things. I'll sit and, like I told you, I'll sit and watch TV for a while, a few hours, and those 3 hours that I'm watching TV, I'm really not watching TV. I'm reading looking at a newspaper, looking at a magazine. I'm on Facebook. I'm checking emails. So you're right. Even when we're trying to cheat ourselves by doing nothing, we're really doing more than just nothing. Just like when we're cheating ourselves at work, when we're looking at Facebook and doing other things, when we should be focused on the one thing.
Absolutely, and we call that is a lack of mindfulness. When you sit down to eat a meal, focus all of your energy, all of your attention, all 5 senses into eating that meal and experiencing it fully. If you're going to sit down and watch a television show, engage completely and fully in the television show. If you're going to work fully, but learn to do things mindfully, being fully present in the experience. And that, I think, is the harder challenge for us, no matter what we're doing, is working on acting with intention and being fully present and engaged. We have so many distractions, so many things to rob us of that intentionality that it can be, very difficult to do, but it has to become a daily practice for us.
Well, Dave, how do we get that? How do we make that be a daily practice? How are we able to be fully engaged in things? I know that while I'm at work, I try to be fully engaged with my listeners. I try to listen to everything that they say and ask thoughtful questions based on the answer that they've given. But sometimes, hey, look, there's a woodpecker out there. I'm watching that, and then a squirrel runs by, and I'm over there, and then you stop talking. I'm like, oh, what were we just talking about again? We try to be engaged, but we sometimes have a hard time going through and following through with that.
Absolutely, and it's going to take work, to become someone who is mindful. My encouragement is, when you're struggling, the moment you notice yourself drifting off or that you have strayed, pull yourself back into the moment. And you may find initially that you have to do that hundreds of times throughout the day, continually pulling yourself back as soon as you notice that you're distracted, re-engaging over and over and over again. Eventually, over time, it's like a muscle. The more that you work it, the larger it gets, the stronger it gets. The same is true with the mind. The more you practice that intentionality, the easier it will become. help. I recommend talk therapy just like I would a personal trainer for the physical body. If you see a therapist and you meet with them and they're holding you accountable to this practice, it can really enhance your gains cognitively and mentally, just like with a personal trainer physically with your body. And so that's my encouragement to folks that may be struggling with that.
But sometimes talking, it's easier to BS somebody than with a physical trainer. I mean, if you've got a personal trainer there, they can see that you're making progress with, muscle mass or weight loss or whatever. But when you're dealing with having conversations, I can tell you, Dave, absolutely. You know what? I only watched TV for 22 minutes yesterday, one 30-minute program. I can give you all the lip service that I want. How do they actually follow through and be honest about that?
Well, sure. And the idea is that before you do anything, you really have to be honest about your motivation. And if you're not motivated to change, then okay, just be honest about that lack of motivation. And that's the important thing in talk therapy. And when I work with clients, I really work with them to be open and honest with me. Look, I'm not there to judge you. I'm not there to put you down or shame you. All I need you to do is be honest and transparent, and you eventually will gain that motivation just through recognizing the patterns in your own life and asking yourself one simple question: do I want to continue behaving and acting and thinking this way? And if the answer is no, okay, let's move towards change. If the answer is yes, okay, well then let's explore what this is doing for you. What is the pain that it's allowing you to escape, or what is the pleasure that it's providing? And hey, you may decide that binge watching is perfectly fine for me, and I feel completely fulfilled after watching 7 seasons all at once of Game of Thrones. Right. Hey, if that is the case, hey, no judgment. That's it's your life, and you do what you feel gives you the most reward. But it's that brutal honesty that has to be there before anybody can move forward.
Dr. Henderson from Four Stones Group joining me this morning here on today's Talk 1490. It sounds a lot like in any, I don't even know if addiction would be the right way to kind of look at this, but I mean, if you're addicted to drugs or alcohol or TV, it's all kind of the same, isn't it?
It absolutely is. In fact, the more that we study the brain and how it responds to pleasurable experiences, the more we realize that it doesn't matter whether it's a chemical substance or an addictive behavior, the brain reacts and responds and changes in very similar ways. And so, you take anything pleasurable can become an addiction. Food, sex, entertainment, drugs and alcohol, gambling, all of these things can become addicting. And I would say that that's a good model or a good way of looking at it. And what do you have to do with an addiction? Well, you can't just rid yourself of the addiction. You have to replace it with something else that has value, that will sustain you in some other way, shape, or form. And so, yeah, it's not enough just to say, well, I don't want to binge watch anymore. You've got to find other alternatives to finding entertainment that has more lasting, sustainable value for your life moving forward.
Well, there's pleasure and pain, I think, in almost all those things that you mentioned. Drugs, alcohol, food, sex. So you're dealing with both pleasure and with pain, and I think that you'd maybe do more to get away from the pain part of whatever that pleasures you. Crazy.
Yes. In any moment in time, we're only motivated by one of two things: the avoidance of pain or the pursuit of a pleasurable experience. And so, being honest about what the action you're taking is doing for you is the first step in initiating that change.
Doctor, thanks for spending time with us this morning. How do we find out more info about the stuff we're talking about?
Folks can go to my website. It's fourstonesgroup.com. That's all spelled out. Or they can go to my personal website. It's drdavidhenderson.com. That's drdavidhenderson.com.
Very good, Doctor. Thanks a lot for joining us this morning. Do appreciate it. And your insight on binge-watching television. I need to step back from that stuff, I personally think. 8:53 is the time. My name is Bob. It's BS with Bob Schmidt on today's Talk 14.